Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for joining. Good day, Anastasia. Hi, Nelson. Hi, Ivana. Hi, Mvea. Welcome, everybody, to this special edition of Mentorship Mondays, where we have a Pink Month special edition. Whoop, whoop, for all the amazing breast cancer, for raising, sorry, breast cancer awareness. And today we have two amazing individuals who are survivors and what the thing I love and I have the pleasure of doing is, being working with one of these survivors. She's the CEO of YIEDI, and she is the founder of a WomX Woman in Business movement, actually. Some of you that are on the call would know exactly what I'm talking about. Super excited today to share the stage with or to share the stage between Jayshree Naidoo and Melanie Maingard. Melanie also being a cancer survivor with a brilliant journey and story of resilience and perseverance. And I'm so excited to share, or I'm sure they are excited to share their journeys with you today. So without a further ado, to kick off this special edition today, I would love to hand over to the founder of WomX and YIEDI, Jayshree Naidoo. Over to you.
Thank you so much, Brendan. Lovely to get that introduction. And happy Diwali to everyone that's watching afterwards. That's why I'm in my Indian outfit today. It's the celebration of light. And as I said earlier, on a LinkedIn post, I'm just so pleased that I can use this opportunity to shed some light today on breast cancer. It's Pink Month. But not just breast cancer, cancers, illnesses, diseases affects all of us, especially sometimes when we are working and we have to take unexpected breaks. We also don't spend as much time taking care of our health or, concentrating on things that are important because when you're in the corporate world, as an example, you are just so consumed by making deadlines, making sure that everything is done. When you're an entrepreneur or sometimes a solopreneur, you're focused on, meeting those payment deadlines, worrying about whether you can actually take the time off to concentrate on your health. And I've been using all of October to shed some light on early detection. And early detection is not just for breast cancer, even though breast cancer affects 1 in 8 women. Early detection is to pick up any illnesses that you may have, including other types of cancers. And I'm so pleased to be joined by Melanie Maingard, and she's going to be sharing more in a little while about her journey, being affected by cancer while in a job. And Jay is on the line. And as you know, I always introduce him as my better half. And Jay is partners with me in business, partners with me in life. And as I gave a talk this weekend, to a group of survivors and thrivers. And some of them, were chatting to us afterwards, and they raised the taboo topic that many of us don't talk about is how your life changes with your partner when you have a disease, any kind of illness, and how it's so important to have a partner that's supportive, that understands you, that walks beside you, but also that can educate themselves in the changes that happen to your mind, your body, your spirit, and being there for you. So I'm going to be facilitating a conversation today. And in between, I'll be sharing my journey. But I would love to introduce you first to Melanie. And Melanie, thank you so much for taking the time today and, being so authentic with me when you and I had a conversation. And Melanie and I were talking about something completely unrelated. And I started sharing my excitement about and Pink Month, and she said to me, I've also been on a journey. So, Melanie, please can you share with us, your journey when you were diagnosed with cancer, what that meant for you as someone that was part of the corporate world, and how you dealt with it, and what are some of the tips or tools that you think our listeners can actually benefit from?
Great. Thanks, Jayshree. And yeah, I mean, a really big thank you for letting me come onto the program today, and this particular women's group. Looking forward to sharing my story. And I know initially when Jayshree had mentioned, would I like to come on to the group and to share, I was a little apprehensive initially because I think my story has been very much of a private one, and not really shared it outside of sort of close family and friends. So it is the first time of taking this big step. So, Jayshree, thank you for pushing me out of my comfort zone. And yeah, really looking forward to the session. And I think really, looking, Jayshree, at your journey, it resonated with me, and it did inspire me. And I think to your earlier comment, which was, cancer doesn't matter which cancer, it is a terrible journey that we have to go through highs and lows. And I think just the emotional, the physical, the spiritual, when you pop out the other side and you look back, I think that really resonated, and that we have a lot in common. And I'm sure we're going to be sharing a lot more as we go on. So I think really just to dive in, my diagnosis was really a surprise one. It was in December 2022. I've been working and living my best life, working with Nedbank Business Banking. I've been with them for 17 years, having a great career. And every year, which was really great of the company, we would go for all the execs would go for an annual medical. And I had been doing that for 7 or 8 years. So there were no surprises that one would think. But went for the medical, and then, got the results back to say everything was clear. The only sort of anomaly was that there was blood in my stool sample, which was very unusual. So no great concern. Decided that what I'd need to do is go for a colonoscopy, which I did do in early 2024, which is the first time that sorry, early 2023, which is the first time I could get an appointment, to have the colonoscopy. And, after having gone under, the colon was looked at, the colon was clear. And luckily, going to a brilliant surgeon, which is, I think, really the first tip is just to understand, the skill level and the diligence of the surgeon, was to understand that, with nothing wrong with the colon, the blood must have come from somewhere. So what he did do, he actually went down my throat, did a scope, had a look at my esophagus, and my throat. And what he did pick up was at the join of your esophageal sphincter muscle, which is the muscle that opens and closes to let food down into your stomach. There was a tumor that had formed on my esophagus. So literally at that juncture, there was a tumor that was growing, which was absolutely, unbeknown to me. The doctor was able to take a biopsy as well, sent it away for analysis. And, I remember going in for the feedback from him, and him saying to me that, there's good news and unfortunately there's bad news. And I think the bad news was that, they found this tumor where it was, and that it was cancerous. But the good news was that, it was around about a stage 2. He could see, he did say that it was treatable, and that we have been able to catch it early. So that was my diagnosis. And, my husband was waiting for me in the reception area. He hadn't actually come into the doctor's room to get the feedback. We didn't anticipate any bad news. And, when we both got back into the car, it was as if a bomb had gone off. You have feelings of confusion, absolute fear. I think just the word cancer is the most terrifying word that you ever want to hear, or you don't want to hear. There was anxiety and again, huge worry. And, with absolutely no symptoms, as I said, living my best life. We have had no history of cancer in our family. You just wonder how this is actually possible. So it was an absolute, rug pulled from under us. Then I think the journey being referred to the oncologist, and then I went through to a gastroenterologist just to also understand, what was happening in the esophagus. So you go on a journey of understanding, and just really, wanting to understand what are the symptoms, how are you going to live, what is in store for you. We then decided that what we would do is we would go through the treatment first, which would be the chemo treatment, in order to shrink the tumor. I think that was a big concern. I think anybody who has cancer, you just want it out of your body as quickly as possible. So for 2 months, I had radiotherapy, and I had intravenous chemo in order to try and shrink the tumor. It definitely did shrink it. And, the PT scan that I had afterwards showed that after the 2 months of treatment, the cancer tumor had or was no longer visible. But I think one of the things I wanted to share was just making use of humor, or using humor in terms of coping. And my husband and I had always said to our children, please don't have any tattoos. We don't have any tattoos, but in order to go for this treatment, I had to, for the radio therapy or for the radiation, they needed to tattoo the areas on my body where they could actually line up the radiotherapy every time. So I did walk out of there with 4 tiny little tattoos. And I did have to say to my kids that it certainly doesn't give them the leverage to now go and have tattoos. So yeah, just bringing humor into, being able to cope with it. So I think after my treatment, the PT scan came out that it was clear. And then I think just another realization and a memory was that walking out of the oncologist with the good news, with my husband and my son, who wanted to come with, we were in the lift closed behind us, and the 3 of us just cried and sobbed. And I think, at that moment, you actually realize how wonderful it is to have the love and support of your family. And also, understanding that, your husband and your family and your children hurt with you, and realizing that it's not only just your journey, you're not alone, I think was a massive realization for me at that point. So just to continue my story, so the oncologist recommended, after having had the treatment, that I go for the surgery. And the surgery was really to remove that portion of the diseased esophagus, and also then to remove the sphincter muscle at the same time. So 4 months after the chemo, I was in hospital. I underwent the massive or major surgery. They went in through my chest and abdomen, and they removed that diseased portion of the esophagus and the sphincter muscle. And now, quite interesting, when they obviously joined it, instead of my stomach being sort of right under my on the top of my chest, it's actually more in my chest than it is lower. So that also comes with its problems. In recovery, I had to follow a special diet, having to eat a lot more softer foods, and also not eating and drinking at the same time. So for a long time, I haven't been able to dunk my South African rusk into my coffee and enjoy it. I've had to have them both separately. And that's been the journey around having to eat differently. I have had to sleep on a wedge, and now recently been able to buy a bed that inclines, so I can't have anything sort of rushing up my throat because I don't have that sphincter muscle anymore. So adapting, to everyday sleeping almost sort of in a 45 to 50 degree angle, which I've had to do. And then the big thing was, being in hospital for 2 weeks, being able to teach myself how to walk again. So again, the support structure I had was wonderful. Walking up and down, in the road, up and down our driveway with both my husband and my son. My daughter was living in the UK at that time, so difficult for her to be a part of it, but obviously sharing with her as much as we could. And as I was healing from the operation, the biopsy that had been taken from the portion that they had cut out was sent away for analysis, and they did unfortunately pick up very micro cancer cells. So my oncologist did say to me that he wanted to do a mop-up treatment, which he recommended. And being young and being strong again, he did believe that it was a good thing for me to go for, and really give me the best chance of surviving. So for the next 5 months, which started in September of 2023, I underwent further chemo and the chemo tabs. And I think this was probably the worst experience. The chemo tabs were just really toxic. I mean, when you take them in your mouth, you've actually got to wear a pair of gloves, and then take them as quickly as you can, and then obviously discard the gloves. So it was really a terrible time. And I think, also at this stage, from having changed my diet dramatically, I dropped sort of 17 kilograms. So it was quite difficult, quite weak, even though I was building strength, to now start having to take another round of chemo. So it took absolutely everything out of me. I think, just some days, just feeling that there was no possibility that I would see the end of it, and crying and feeling really dark. And again, the strength of family. I remember my husband and my son sort of coming into the room, and when I didn't want to take the tablet, saying to me, "You have to do it, Mom. You have to do it, love. This too will pass." And I think that became a bit of a statement for us in the house. Whenever things felt too much to bear, we knew that there would be an end game and an end sight. So, this too will pass. And then, also my daughter giving me such motivation, and wonderful to have her come out from the UK and surprise me during this treatment as well. So you realize that there is going to be light at the end of the tunnel, but just you don't know when. You just have to sort of hold it all together. And yes, it did pass. So, thank goodness I completed my last chemo in Feb 2024, which was effectively a whole year after I had been diagnosed. So it was a long journey, but, really pleased to let you know that I'm clear, survived it. And yeah, I mean, just looking at my journey, and I think just a couple of things I've jotted down, because you sit back and you think about it. And I think for me, the biggest reflections that I wanted to share, and I'm sure, Jayshree will also, resonate with this, was that apart from the physical side, the mental coping is something that you just don't prepare yourself for. And, working for Nedbank, we had a lot of employee well-being schemes, and the one was through ICAS, and you're able to make use of their full range of doctors and psychologists. And I was referred through to a psychologist for help with coping, and definitely something that I would recommend, because they are able to give you tips and tricks and just coping mechanisms on how to really look and sort of foster positive thinking, and also how to manage your wandering mind. Your mind goes back to the dark areas, and how to pull it back. So definitely something that I would recommend to anybody who's going through this treatment is to really look at your mental health, because it's key critical. Just some of the other valuable tips that the psychologist gave me, in actual fact, was to say, every day, just name 3 things that you're grateful for. Show your gratitude. And they can be anything. You could wake up and just say, thank you for, the lovely sunny weather, and thank you for the wonderful home that I have. So it's just really being mindful around how blessed you are, and to sort of really, look at how valuable that is in your frame of mind. Just some of the affirmations, I think also a huge tip for me is every day, I say to myself, you are strong, you are healthy, and you are cancer free. And that is really your truth. So, say that to yourself, because you really do believe it, and it becomes part of your psyche. And then I think really, lastly, is just really enjoy where you are, be present in the moment, love and treasure your family and your friends. Be grateful for the people that you've met along the way. Sitting in the chemo rooms, having your chemo treatment, it is really difficult, but there's such a camaraderie there that really propels you forward. And then I think a big one, be grateful for the doctors and the surgeons. We live in a time of technology where, we're so grateful that we've got medicine that can help us, through these difficult times and difficult journeys, and, bring us back to good health. And I think really just also, just look at visualization. I know, Jayshree, you've also used that. And for us, it was a big one where we were planning a trip overseas to the UK again to be with my daughter. And it was spending that time just visualizing how strong you needed to be, how strong I needed to, build up that strength, that we could actually go on walks around London, we could go and visit family and friends. And that is also absolutely inspiring. So visualize what it is that you want. And then I think lastly, and I think you're going to touch on it, Jay, is just around your good support structure. I was very blessed to have a caring and supportive family, with me throughout the journey. And I think also for my extended family, for my children and for my husband to have also had the support, which was definitely something that has propelled us forward. And without that, I don't think we would have really made it. So that's my journey. I'm pleased to be here sharing it with you. And yeah, I mean, I think if there are any questions or anybody who would like to share, Jayshree, I'm happy to do that. And thank you for letting me share my journey.
Thank you so much, Melanie. I mean, that's such a brave share, and it's never easy, sharing your
No.
journey. I chose from the very beginning to share because, I was creating awareness around breast cancer and early detection even before I was diagnosed because my mom was a breast cancer survivor.
Okay.
And she passed in 2021 through COVID. But I tried to use every platform I possibly could. So Melanie, before we will take questions later on in the session, and if any of you have a question for Melanie, put it in the
Mm,
chat. But I'd like to also understand, was there a specific moment in your journey where you realized you had to just press pause, you had to embrace this where you just focused on your journey and on healing. So was there a
mm.
specific moment where you realized that needed to be done?
Yeah, I think there was, I think when you start healing physically, and you want to, build your strength, but not only, as I said, your physical strength, it's also to take time out for the things that you enjoy. So the pause and reflect was, what is it that I enjoy doing? So I really love Pilates. So, it was one of the things that I wanted to go back to, and also not being able to lie flat was, would I be able to do it? So definitely taking time thinking about what you enjoy doing. So I started Pilates again. And also, taking responsibility for eating well, and preparing your own food, which I think was also a huge reflection where, I think having worked in a corporate world, I was very, very much on a sort of a treadmill, being able to go out, pop into shops and buy ready-made food and that type of thing. But having the time now and also the inclination to want to eat well, have good health, good vitamins, good sustenance, was for me to, start investigating. I've done more cooking now than I've ever done my whole life. But with good ingredients and with, knowledge around what good food needs to be, and particularly for cancer survivors, we've got to make sure that there's no alcohol, that there's, looking at cutting down on sugar and all of those things. So for me, it was how to take better care of myself and obviously for my better care of my family. So I think that was really the sort of departure point to say it's for me, but it's also for my family.
Oh, thank you so much, Melanie. I mean, I can't express how appreciative I am for the braveness in sharing your story. And, the one thing I do want to share, since we do have individuals joining us from corporate on the line or later on watching via our YouTube channel, is very often people are afraid to share the journey that they've been on for
Mm,
being judged and being branded or, being known for just that you are someone that has had cancer. You are weak and you are vulnerable and you are no longer the version of yourself that you
mm,
believe you are and who you want to be known for. And I gave a
mm,
talk a couple years ago. It was a TEDx talk and it was titled People Are More Than the Jobs They Do. And this Saturday, when I spoke about my journey, I said to the ladies that you are also more than your illness. You're a wife, you're a mother, you're a sister, you're a mentor, you're a friend. You have so many more roles than just being labeled. You're just a cancer survivor,
mm,
or you are someone that's going through cancer. And yes, it is something to wear proudly. But as you know, and I know, we are just so much more than just those labels.
mm.
Thank you for your time, Melanie. We will come back to you for some questions.
Thanks,
And now
Jayshree.
you are absolutely welcome. So please do stay on the line. And, for those of you that are on the line or those even watching later, I think Jay also needs no introduction because he has been my life partner and just has stood by my side with my cancer journeys, because I've been on this journey twice, all through these journey. And, I make a joke, and you said it, Melanie, earlier, it's important to have fun with this, because I always say to people as well, I have 6 tattoos. They have no idea that 4 of those are little dots on my body that I had to receive before radiation. But Jay, I really want us to have this conversation where on our way back this Saturday, you said to me, it's so important for men and for partners, whoever that partner is in your life, to realize the role that they play and why it's so important to actually be understanding of someone going through this journey. Because I know I wasn't the easiest person to deal with. I know I became a different version of myself. I know that the loudest person in my home is actually me. And during chemo, I became the quietest person in the house. So I know all of this, but I'd love for you to share what it means for a partner and the person that's your primary caregiver to actually see this, and just wanted your voice to be heard in this very, very important conversation as well. So over to you, Jace. Sorry, Jace, you're on mute. You're on mute, unfortunately.
Uh,
There you are. Sorry, Jay. I think you're still on mute. Brandon, is it just okay?
I think Jay may have dropped off.
Okay,
Maybe
I think he will come back in a little bit, but let's open it up if there's any questions. I think there might just be some technical difficulties that we're experiencing. We are in 2 different rooms in the house. Are there any questions for Melanie or myself while we wait for Jay to come back online? Okay. Melanie, I see we've got some beautiful comments here from Anastasia. Thank God, we give praise, we believe all is gone. Ivana says, thank you for sharing, Melanie. So Jay is back. Jay, you back? I was worried
can
there
you
for a
hear me?
moment. Yes, we can hear you clearly now. So we'll come back to some of those comments, Melanie. Jay, over to you.
Thank you, Jayshree. Thank you, my better half. It's Diwali, the light of my life. And thank you, Melanie, for sharing your story and your journey with us, because there's so many touch points that I can resonate with. And I think Jayshree as well, in terms of what you've been through. So thank you for that. And thank you for giving me this opportunity to be able to share this with you, because I felt that it was so important when Jayshree and I had the conversation on Saturday. When we were driving back from the talk that she gave to all these cancer patients at the hospital. And it was so important. I mean, there were so many different people from so many different walks of life that we encountered, that's going through this such difficult challenge that they face. Um, and I felt, it was important because it's one thing to understand, from a medical standpoint, in terms of the treatment that you're going through, and all the doctors that are there. They are so supportive. The support structure is there. And I think, when Jayshree and I chatted, and I was saying to her, apart from that, for a cancer patient, I think it's so important to have the right support structure in terms of, the people that are absolutely close to you, your family members, your spouse, your colleagues, to be able to hold your hand through this journey. And for me, when Jayshree was first diagnosed with cancer, I was in limbo because I didn't know, I didn't understand what she was going through. I didn't know what I had to do as a spouse. But when I did the research, I understood that, from a medical standpoint, she was good because we had the right people we had the right doctors, we had the right advice, and we had information. So we researched it, and we knew that I knew that this wasn't going to be an easy journey for her. But at the same time, I realized something that needed to change in terms of making sure that she has the willpower, making sure is in the right frame of mind, that she consciously understood that she had the full support of the people that were around her, and especially me as a spouse. Although I didn't know what to do, but I knew I had to do something. And I knew that was going to make a difference. That was going to be the biggest difference for her in terms of making sure that she was continuously in a positive mindset. And when I started chatting to people over the last few weeks, where we went for quite a few engagements, and I could take my hat out to all these women, the ones that are in corporate, the ones that are in business, that came out in support. And it was so important for us to share, our journey, our experience, to make sure that, the people that are around the cancer patients understand that it's not just only about the treatments that they go for, but also the support that they actually require. And I think, you touched on so many things, Melanie, the mental, the mindset of the person. Although you may know or understand that, going for chemo or going for radiation, it's not going to be easy for you. But just knowing that you have somebody holding your hand and is there continuously for you, no matter whatever it is that you're going to go through, that person is going to be standing by you. And that makes, the biggest difference in a cancer patient's journey. Having to be able to make sure that they have that kind of support. And, even just sitting with them or going with them for every session, like Jayshree and I've been with her. I remember the first time when we went, and it was a learning process for me, because I will admit I didn't know what to do, but something in me said, I needed to walk this journey with her. So I consciously made an effort to make sure that every treatment that she attended, I was there with her. When she got out, when she came back from surgery, I had to, empower myself with the knowledge. I had to do research to make sure the things that I needed to do. So I spoke to the doctors. I wanted the information. I wanted to make sure that I had enough information to understand that when she goes through, chemo, these are the after effects, that we need to deal with. And that was okay. But making sure, that you're there and providing the necessary support would sort of make us stronger and believe. You touched on something, visualization, having to be able to see the vision, having to be able to see the things that you want to achieve in your life, and keep reinforcing that. I also remember, the time when we had COVID, and we were sleeping in the same ward, and I was next to her, and it was so traumatic for both of us. But something kept saying to me, I needed to make sure that she knows, the things that we want to do when we retire, the places you touched on it, Melanie, travel, see the world, enjoy, have fun, we can get over this. And the mind is such a powerful thing, because nobody thought we were going to survive COVID. Even the doctors, they were there and they didn't know what to do. But God has given us, that second chance. And I think the reason why, it's because of the belief. So when you start empowering those individuals that's going through these difficult times, it makes a huge difference, in terms of Jayshree would always say this, she's I think the only cancer patient that actually put on weight while she was going through the journey. Because I had to make sure that she, had her meals. I had to sit there and tell her why, it's important because you need your strength. And it's the little things that you do that makes the biggest difference in a cancer patient's life. Um, and it's not always, when I was listening to some of the ladies speak, uh, I wanted to understand what was missing, and that's the reason why Jason and I had that conversation in the car, is that we have all these great people around us, these great doctors, the nurses, I mean, there was a dietitian there on Saturday that actually spoke from the heart, the way we need to eat and why we need to eat certain ways, and what foods we need to eat. So it was so powerful. But for me, what was, what was important is that making sure that we start, creating inclusiveness and collaboration in the information that we're sharing, not just for the cancer patients, but for the people that support the cancer patients, the people that are there, because we take it for granted, they know these things, they should be doing these things. But most of the time, some people are not computer literate. They haven't used a computer before in their lives. Um, they haven't, read or have access to information. But when we have these sessions, is that to start creating that level of inclusiveness, because then we start empowering people that support, or the spouses, or family members or colleagues and friends who want to support the cancer patients but don't know how. So it's so important that we start also thinking in those lines when we have these kinds of sessions, is that how do we empower those individuals? Because ultimately, at the end of the day, those individuals are dependent on their spouses, on their significant others, or their friends, or their colleagues, to provide that support. And we've seen that firsthand, the effect that it has on the patient, how it uplifts the patient, how it makes them stronger, how it, make them believe that, what, we can overcome this. And we can, if we have that level of support where we consciously start changing the mindsets of people, empowering them with the knowledge of what they need to do and how they need to go about doing it. And I was saying to Jayshree that, the book that she's writing, is to include that kind of information in there, where you provide the guidance, the support, the information that's required to be able to support the individuals that's going through this journey. And when Jayshree was diagnosed the second time around, I looked at her and I said, we can do this. And I said to her, believe me that I will be there to support you 100%. There's nothing that you needed to worry about. And to be honest with you, I didn't feel it. I didn't feel it. I knew she was going through this, and she was like, oh my God, we have to go through this again. But when you reinsure the individual, that person, because I didn't want her to do anything. I just wanted her to have a treatment, do what she wanted to do in terms of building a confidence, building a mindset to continuously stay positive. And it's not something easy. It's not something that, you can say, I'll be able to just, do this. It is something that you have to consciously be able to, and knowingly that, what, I have the support, I have the belief, I know 100%. And I know sometimes she felt, she was, there was a lot for me to do. But at the end of the day, she knew that I was her strength. I was the children, my children, our family, that, that I tell you, they were there. They made sure that, she was okay. And those are the people that you want to stay close to. Those are the people that, some of them, we didn't even have to tell them what they needed to do. They just automatically knew what they had to do. It is so important that for especially from, I think, for the spouses, is to be able to understand consciously and willingly what your role is in this journey. And I think for me, that's important, that, we start sharing that information. We start creating that level of inclusiveness to make sure that we continuously empower those people around us, because and I was saying, we take it for granted, but it's important that kind of information start, being shared. And the only way we're going to do that is that when we start speaking openly in terms of, how do we communicate? And Melanie, I mean, you shared your story today, and it was powerful. That was really, really powerful and inspiring, in terms of the way your son, your husband, and your family came together in terms of supporting you in that journey. And we need to hear more stories like that, so that we can start, um, empowering other people that's going through this, and they spouses and friends and family. So yeah, so thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to be able to share a little bit of my journey, in this. It's something that's very close to my heart, and it's something that I think Jayshree and I will continuously do going forward in the future, not just in Cancer Month, but in everything that we do. We want to start empowering people of early detection, the support structures that are there, and help these individuals through their journey. So thank you for the opportunity, Jayshree.
Sorry, I see I was on mute. So thank you so much, Jace. I mean, this is the reason, right? Jace is my better half for the last 36 years, because like he said, sharing this to others that are the better halves, the spouses, the business partners. And that's one of the things I want to now take a few minutes and share more about is, as an entrepreneur, and many of you that are part of our community are entrepreneurs, or you've worked in corporate, and I've been both. And at the moment, as an entrepreneur, I know that it can be extremely challenging and daunting when you go through a journey like this, when you realize that you've got to press pause and take care of your health. And that's one of the reasons implementing proper processes, systems in place is critical for your business. It's critical for the sustainability of your business, to ensure that during a time like going through something like having breast cancer or any type of cancer or any type of illness, the last thing you need to concern yourself with is, do I have the correct business processes in place? If you are the only person that's needed in order for your business to run effectively, it's already going to be extremely stressful. You are actually going to start delaying getting those health checks for fear that something might come up, for fear that if it does, how will I put pause on my business? And, delaying the inevitable can cause you so many complications later on in your life. So, Melanie, when you spoke about, getting that first diagnosis and feeling like, oh my gosh, what now? I remember when I had my first biopsy, Jay and I had just resigned from my corporate role. And we were on our work actually to a meeting. We were very, very excited about impressing this executive that was a decision maker. And we were driving to the office, and I just had this biopsy, and there was just so much of fear in the air because we hadn't received the results yet. And, even with that biopsy patch, I was still a bit excited. I said, this is just, it's just a lump. It's going to be nothing major. So we tried to be as positive as possible, got to the meeting, and, in the middle of the meeting, I get a call I said to the lady, please, can I be excused? I just have to take this very urgent call and I won't be long. And Jay and I walked to one of the corridors and then we got the message. And the news from the doctor, and it was devastating, and we went through this journey and Jay explained some of it, and I went through it. Losing my hair was not important to me at the time. Putting pause on the business was quite something, because for almost a year, I had to go for about 3 surgeries, chemotherapy in between. And we went through that journey. And like Jay said, 2 years later, we both ended up with COVID. So I know what it's like to learn how to walk again, because I was hospitalized for 6 weeks, bedridden. And, it took me almost 3 months to recover, being able to learn how to walk again. And then you almost feel like there's someone playing little games with you up there, because a few years later I was diagnosed again, and I was angry and I was scared, and all of the emotions that I even shared this weekend. And Jade, the cat out of the bag, where I am writing a book, um, you know And even now, when I was diagnosed, the beauty was at this point, put business processes in place. And remembering that this talk today is about the ability to press pause, to focus on who you are as an individual. And even though it was a devastating diagnosis, the last thing I needed to worry about was the business. And it should be the last thing you worry about as a person. That should be there to enable you to live your life. But a lot of us think our business is our life. No, your life is your life. It's the most important thing you have, and you only have one of it. Your family, the time that you spend with them. So you need to ensure that you build the right systems and processes so that you can live a life that leaves a legacy. You want people to say the right things about you. And yes, those of you that know me, there's some of the individuals on the call, there's some of you that will be watching later. I'm extremely passionate about the work that you do, but you can be guaranteed I'm the most passionate about my life and spending it with my family and making sure that I am there for them. The work that we do is important. We love it. We love changing people's lives. But I can't do that if I'm no longer here. And I can only be here if I take the correct care of myself. So you need to think that way as well, is take care of yourself, take care of your health, make sure you get your regular checkups. If you're a woman on this call, or if you are watching this video and you have not had your mammogram for the year and you are over the age of 40, please do that. Schedule an appointment. And if you feel like you can't afford it, there are organizations like Reach for a Dream who will cover the costs of your mammogram. So find a way to have your checkups and make sure you have, follow the routine of early detection. I'm now going to open up for conversation. I have a lot to say, and I normally do say a lot about my journey and my story. And I am writing it down so that I can share it freely. It will be a free ebook for anyone that wants it. It will be ready in a couple of months' time. But for now, I'm going to open up for any questions or conversations. I'm going to go to the chat. So Melanie and Jay, I'd like you to stay on the line. Ivana says, can't wait to read that book. Me too, Ivana. No, I'm just kidding. I'm like 80% there. It's lovely. It was lovely being able to reflect on my journey. I see Anastasia says, so sweet. Jay. So Jay, you've got more fans now from some of the amazing individuals. And I want to use this opportunity to just say, I would not have been able to go through all of what I've had to go through if I did not have someone as strong and as strong-minded as Jay by my side, making sure that I take every single medication, vitamin, and have all of my meals. Yes, we do joke that I must be the only person in the history to have put on some weight during my cancer treatment. So let's open it up, ladies and gentlemen that are on the line. Please, can I have a show of hands? Brandon, if you can just help me have a look at that as well. Yeah, let's see. Melanie, while we're looking for those, do you have any other comments or, feedback after you've now heard a little bit about my journey and Jay's as well?
Yeah, thanks, Jayshree. And I mean, I really appreciate Jay coming on because I think, as I'd mentioned, we look at our support and it has been our families and our husband. And I think that for me, the realization, as I said in my sort of feedback, was the time when you see your husband cry and you see your children cry and you actually know that they're hurting as much as you. And I think just so wonderful. I mean, one of the things that Jay mentioned, I actually jotted it down, was just sitting, with you at the chemo sessions. I mean, that was exactly what I had my son and my husband do. And it was just so wonderful because you're sitting there and they're fussing around you and you just know that they're with you, to help you through it, to help you get up, attend to your needs. But it's just having that sort of connection. And it is absolutely key critical. So, well done to all the spouses out there, whether it's, husbands or wives that do it. It is absolutely needed and it is really, really so valuable. So, yeah, thanks, Jay, for sharing. Definitely resonates with me as well.
Oh, thank you, Melanie. Melanie, while I have you on the line as well, Brandon has a question on here and he says, can you share your experience on those dark days and where that strength was pulled from? And I'll answer that question after you as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think those dark days, they were there. And I think it was just the physical feeling really sick, because I think that was your emotion ties in with that. But the dark days, I think having people around, and also having, my husband and my son who were with me. My daughter was in the UK, so it was a little bit more difficult to connect with her through all those times. But just having them coming into the room and almost sometimes having to literally sort of shake me out of it because, I think you can get yourself to such a deep, dark level where you need somebody to physically say enough. So I did have a couple of telling offs, which I think is good because you need to sort of wake up and you need to, see the bigger picture. So definitely your support structure around you to get you through it. And then I think just really believing, which I think which I did, was things were going to get better. It was just that I had to get through it. So you take strength in that and you just know that next day you've got to give it your best and one day after the other. And there was just something that I have, there was such a lovely little, my favorite verse. It's very simple, but I've got it printed on my fridge and it says, bloom where you stand. So you'll be in difficult soil trying to bloom or big fertile soil and it's easy to bloom. So that's what life is. So I think that's the sort of the darkness that, how you can get around it is just know that you've just got to push through, and with the right support, you can do it.
Oh,
I don't
I
know how
love
you
that.
found yours, Jayshree. How did you get out of your dark days or dark minutes and hours?
So I'm generally a very positive person, annoyingly so sometimes. I always try and see the good in everything and everyone. But, when you go through this journey, you'll know it. Sometimes you have no other choice but just to feel sorry for yourself. And sometimes you've got to remind yourself, just stop feeling sorry for yourself. So I used visualization a lot. My daughter was getting married. I was diagnosed in December, and the following year, September, her wedding date was already set and she was getting married. And my son had just moved overseas, and I used visualization a lot. I just pictured me dancing at her wedding. I just pictured us having fun. I just pictured me with my son. I just pictured hugging my kids and their better halves, my husband and I still picture having cannolis in Italy, which is something we're planning to do next year. And earlier this year, we got to watch Liverpool win the league. All you Manchester United fans that are watching online or later on, don't be haters. But, we did things that we visualized and I visualized and I absolutely loved it. I loved that I was able to see myself and then get to that point. And one of the things I said this weekend when, I was giving my talk as well, this too shall pass. And I think you said it earlier as well. I said, this shall pass. So sometimes happy moments are not permanent, but sad moments and difficult times are not permanent either. So everything we go through, the situation will change, and whatever it changes for, that's where it was meant to be. So I also believe in the power of universal thinking, where the universe, whatever's meant to happen will happen. You come across people that you are meant to come across. I believe in affirmations, and you spoke about affirmations earlier. So every day I listen to my positive affirmations. I also start my day by just saying what I'm grateful for, and it can be the little things. So, some of what you shared was really powerful. And whether you have cancer or whether you are just listening to this and whether you are going through a difficult patch, it doesn't matter. These lessons that Melanie shared and some of what I shared can be used by anyone to get through whatever it is that you're going through. And, it just so happens that at a phase in our lives, Melanie, you and I went through this journey, but we've got amazing support in our lives. We've got amazing spouses. We've got amazing partners. We've got amazing children. And for those of you who think, but I don't have that, you can get that from a sisterhood. You can get that from friends. You can get that from people you go to church with. You can get that from your community. So there's a hand up. Jay, oh, sorry, I was going to come to you now as well, Jay. So over to you, Jay.
Thank you. And I think, that's such an important question that Brendan asked, because, it's so important to understand the emotional state of the person, and the different phases that they go through, and how you need to have that level of emotional intelligence to be able to deal with that. And so often we are not, because we are afraid. We are afraid to push, like for an example, to say, you need to eat this food. You need to take your medication. You need to rest. And you'll find that, when a person goes through this journey and the treatments that they go through, their mindset changes. They go into a state of depression. They go into a state of sadness. How you, as a spouse, a friend, a daughter, a son, deals with it is absolutely important, in terms of the communication, in terms of that stress levels. So it's important, to understand how you need to manage that emotional intelligence. Because sometimes it can take a toll on you, but you as well also got to be strong enough, because you got to be strong enough for that person, and understand that person's state of mind at that point, to be able to make sure that they can go through this journey without that level of stress. Thinking about the pressures that you're putting, the conflict, the communication. It's important. So yeah, it's a good question and good point that you made.
Thank you so much for that, Jay. I mean, and unfortunately, we have now come to the end of our time together, but I see Anastasia did ask a question about sharing menus, and I think Melanie mentioned it. We know when we having something that's unhealthy. We know that we shouldn't be buying too many takeouts. We know that we shouldn't be having processed foods, but when you're busy, and you're a busy mom and you're a busy entrepreneur and you're busy working in corporate, it's easy to make the excuses of, it's just easier. Let me just get something. I don't have the time. But you have to make the time to actually eat healthy. There's lots of these recipes online. There are dietitians. So I won't be sharing recipes in my book, but maybe there's a chapter on healthy eating tips, Melanie, that you can contribute to on that as well. But with that said, I just want to thank all of you. I want to thank you, Jay, for taking such good care of me, but also sharing how you need to behave or be when you're a partner and a spouse. And you're right. We need to share this with so many individuals. And there's no embarrassment walking into a room full of women and standing by your partner. The same way, women can stand besides their partners and daughters can stand up for their dads and even change a diaper if you need to, because that's what loved ones do. We do what we need to do for the ones that we love. And thank you, Melanie, for sharing your story. I'm sure we're going to have a lot more conversations. I really do believe that the power of stories, and it can help change people's lives. And that's what my book is actually called. Your story can change a life. And I'm looking forward to sharing it with so many more individuals so that it can help change others' lives as well. So have a beautiful, beautiful afternoon, everyone. And if you are watching online, thank you so much for watching this video. And if you need any other information, you can find Melanie Maingard on LinkedIn. You can find me on LinkedIn, and you can find Jay there as well, or an online search should be able to get you to us as well. Thank you, everyone. And thank you, Melanie. Thank you, Jay. Bye.
Thanks, Jayshree. Bye.
Bye.